hello, and Darina, hey.
We are.
Great to have you both with us.
Hello.
We appreciate the time. So normally,
Great
we
to
would
be here.
do the introduction ourselves, but I feel you guys would do it far better than me. So if it's okay, I'll come to you, Darina, first, and then Kristian. Just give us a quick introduction to yourselves, a bit of your background possibly, and then after them we'll get started with the interview.
Cool.
Oh, of course. Well, hey, thank you so much, Dick. It's really lovely to be at our first ever event for Startup Grind, and what a massive organisation. Amazing. So, yeah, I'm Darina. I am the CXO, so Chief Experience Officer and co-founder of Ooni, along with Kristian, who is my husband. This is not our first company. We started a creative education company called Sukla back in, was it 2007? And we've worked together even before that. So the kind of weird segue, which Kristian directly in Finnish translates as donkey bridge between our two companies, he always tells people in Ooni that this is our donkey bridge, is that we were working within education to try and put teachers and young people at the heart of the future of learning. So we're very involved as how those within communities can shape it. So I'm sure it's incredibly similar to your work at Startup Grind. And our biggest thing was that creativity wasn't happening enough. That was what the kind of reasons for our work. And kind of kids were coming out of schools without the ability to be creative and to connect with people in everyday life. So loads of work around that. But what we often said was creativity was problem solving. So Kristian can tell you more about the problem he solved with inventing the first Ooni. But there's the early days with Sukla and spending lots of time in NGOs and in school communities and looking at lots of different types of leadership definitely stood us in good stead for forming Ooni, because it meant that we put kind of culture and people right at the heart of our very first day at Ooni. So yeah, that's me. Very passionate about education, very passionate about people, and I think, like I say, it's helped us grow to where we're at now. But Kristian can tell you about his old donkey bridge from Sukla into how you invented Ooni.
All right. Hey, thanks very much. So, hey everybody. So my name is Kristian Tapaninaho. It's a Finnish last name. I was up until earlier this week, I was only Finnish. From Monday, I'm also British. So I got my nationality, which is quite a big step. I've lived in UK for practically all of my adult life. Moved here to study back in 2002, and along that journey, then met with Darina, and yeah, I've been enjoying life ever since. But yeah, so I don't know if we want to dive into Ooni itself later on, but yeah, been my little bit of my background. I grew up in a family business, so very much like a family of entrepreneurs in a way. So that's always been part of that. I've probably never started a hobby in my life that I hadn't thought about how to turn it into a business, and then Ooni was one of those that kind of caught on a little bit more than the other things.
Nice hobby.
Well, it's great to have you both, and there's so many ways I'd love to kind of take the conversation. Obviously, we'll come back to Ooni and the founding stories. That's one that I'm really interested in. The one thing that stopped me doing it was you speaking about Sukla, and I'd really love actually to, even if it's just an overview or just an idea of your thinking at the time, just really explore for you what really drove you to start. What really drove you, obviously, into entrepreneurship in this early venture? I know you mentioned education. Mm-hmm. Was there a particular moment or?
Yeah, so we started, Kristian and I worked together as freelancers for this project called Creative Partnerships, which was essentially, it was written as a white paper that's recognised people like Sir Ken Robinson and Jude Kelly, who's the chair of the South Bank Centre. Lots of creative people sort of wrote this big paper to government saying that kids aren't getting the skills they need. So on the back of that, this programme was built called Creative Partnerships, where creative practitioners and project managers were put into schools to do wild projects, and they were so you could have a scientist and a dancer doing something about changing school cultures. And it was a really wonderful kind of mad and excellent sort of launch pad for our work into schools. So Christian and I both studied photography. I've worked as both a project manager and a photographer on these different projects, and they were international sometimes in multiple schools, NGOs and all sorts. So quite quickly we learned that there was so much that we could do within schools, like professional development projects. And we looked at, Christian's pretty techie, and that it was interesting to see teachers feeling left behind from kids who could be techie, and like but there were sort of things that were missing. So we thought there was an opportunity there. And the way that SUKLA grew was basically around learning events. So instead of having a kind of same old learning conference, the same speakers, we wanted to make it much more like a festival and have the full stakeholders' voice and help shape education. So we still do have this event called OPI that runs as part of SUKLA, and SUKLA still exists. We stepped back from it a couple of years ago because it was just too much. We were sort of not doing a good job trying to balance both. But yeah, still incredibly passionate about it. And yeah, as I said, the biggest thing I noticed was we spent time in so many types of organizations, and you could just tell the culture of a place from how you're greeted at reception, right? Like, I'm sure you know that feeling. Feel like, okay, this is an empowered workforce, or there's people who are happy in their jobs, and we learned sort of by doing, so much of that was about having a leader that trusted their team. So like I think about that quite often, and it was just kind of good experience for us. So when we came and we realized that Ooni was a really good idea, we've always really put that up there with the importance of product. It's definitely been my priority. I think that Christian and I are quite complementary in the way that we think about forming the business. So that's kind of where it came from.
Fantastic. No, it's great to hear you. And I'll come back actually to your question about the complementary side of things. I think that's a common thread with co-founders, of course. That's your husband and wife team as well. But let's come to you, Christian, for the story behind Ooni, because I'd love to hear your take on it, and obviously from then we can jump into some of the more specific questions.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so started in so Darina and I got married in 2010. I got really into pizza around the same time, and it became like Friday night pizzas became a thing in our house, and I wanted to get better at it. And what's great about pizza is that it's an easy thing to make really quite nice pizzas, but it's got an incredible depth to get into getting closer to perfection. So there's a really enormous amount you can learn, and part of this learning journey of learning to make better pizzas at home was that I started looking at, well, this IKEA domestic electric oven in our rented terraced house in Southeast London it wasn't getting up to those kind of temperatures that you'd want for Neapolitan style pizza, which is you need 500 degrees for. Around the same time, Jamie Oliver was on TV with his large ovens that he was selling for a few £1,000s, and it's like, well, that looks like the solution for this, but isn't there anything that's more convenient that I don't have to invest enormous amounts of money on, and could actually bring with me if I wanted to move? So I kind of started looking into the market and looking for this product for myself. I realized that it doesn't look like anybody's making anything decent. Doesn't look like anybody's making one that I'd like to actually buy. So I recognized this market opportunity there and started working out that, well, if I can make this work, I think there will be other people out there who'd like this. And this was true. This was really kind of keen on, sort of had this sense for the market of there being other people and wanting to find those other people, which is why early on decided to use Kickstarter to launch it. And this feels really quite like, well, of course, Kickstarter is here and all that, but if you wind yourself back to 2012, Kickstarter launched in UK 2 weeks before we did on Kickstarter. So Kickstarter wasn't this thing that is ever present and it's always been there. It's been in UK for 2 weeks. And I'd actually made a plan. I had a different plan already to launch it on the US version of it if it didn't launch, but then I knew that it is coming. So So that was really the early stages. It was about creating tools for, and a tool for making great pizza at home. And that's really been our sort of story and the kind of line we go for ever since the beginning. So
fantastic. It reminds me, I'm not sure you guys are familiar with Tim Ferriss, and one of the things that he often recommends, and it's scratching your own itch. So I guess if you're creating a product or service to solve a problem, if you yourself want to solve it, I guess it gives you this almost unique insight into what people want. So I was really, really interested. I'd love actually to come back to Kickstarter, because it was one of my questions, and I actually had no idea that Kickstarter only started. So I guess Kickstarter were kickstarting themselves.
Yeah.
So it's complete perception.
I think we could have backed projects, of course, before that, but you couldn't actually launch a project in the UK because you had to have a US bank account, basically. So that's what he means. But
the US, the US version been around, I think, starting take around 09, 08, 09. I remember my first project that I backed on Kickstarter was from 2010. I'm pretty sure, something like that. So I'd been aware of it, and kind of I knew that if I was almost looking for something to launch on Kickstarter at that stage, and it was kind of this like, this is really cool.
Fantastic. And one of the reasons I was keen to ask you was obviously the success behind it, because I suppose for many startups, until you get to this point of scaling and you have the momentum, you're almost kind of pushing a boulder up a hill. And I guess what I'm really keen to hear from you guys is, what was your thinking in terms of strategy behind the campaign? Like, how did you approach it, and what do you think made it such a success? Because I can imagine it must be really difficult if nobody had heard of reading it. It was a new.
I think I mean, it was very, very simple. I think that's like reflecting on the success of the campaign. It's tiny by today's standards. So we had a goal of £7,500. And for anyone who's like kind of follows our progress, we on another campaign got over £50,000 in an hour before, and that was, and over $1 million raises in Kickstarter or crowdfunding campaigns. So it was tiny and incredibly modest, but truly a Kickstarter for us, and testing our proof of concept. So because we both studied photography, we have lots of like videographer friends, but we made a very simple video. It's so cute to watch it now because it's incredibly simple, with Kristian sitting at a table in our back garden. But yeah, we raised about 30,000, say, during that campaign.
17,000 pounds. Yeah.
Okay, and then so it was successful. It was great, and we got new customers. And what was so good about that, and I talk about this to every new start in the business, is I think that the Kickstarter campaign, the start, helped establish so many things for us. So we were based in London at the time, but from day one we were international because we had customers all over the world. So that was amazing. And then everyone who's done a Kickstarter or Indiegogo or anything similar knows that the people who are backers are actually backers, so they're not customers. They win if you win, so they're on the same side as you. So that's really helpful in terms of thinking about our consumers now these days. Is like, they want you to win, we're on the same team, let's like work as partners in an authentic way. The other thing to the word authentic is that they're quite high maintenance, so people are prepared to wait a while for new projects to launch, and things might go wrong with manufacture or whatever, or slow down, but they're very high maintenance in terms of communication. So people want great open dialogue, and Kristian particularly did so much of that back and forth and was really open and authentic, and we've really tried to keep that. We really strive to keep that as we've grown, and that kind of authentic voice and connection to us and everyone in the team. So that was good. And then people's hearts and minds were won over by this product. So we got so much media on the back of it, with only this little mini campaign. We got kind of Wired got in touch, and like amazing interest from day one, where they were like, okay, it was like $300 we charged for the first one, was it? Yeah. $300. So like super disruptive, the size of a carry-on suitcase, and like everyone loves pizza, like you already acknowledged. It was a win from the start. So from then on, it was kind of like it was definitely being a race to just keep up with demand. And at that point, we didn't even have a manufacturer. So we were like, oh, and then loads of it, after the 30 days closed, we had loads and loads of incoming orders. So it's been a whirlwind, but yeah, like lots of great stuff, because especially about becoming international from the day one and having a leaning towards North America, because that's still the sort of mix of our customer base.
That's amazing. I honestly have like 10 questions after that. So thanks for sharing. And one of the things actually that's jumped out, I know this is probably going to jump around a bit. Like I guess I said it probably would, but what I noticed actually, Darina, that you mentioned was this balance between the early days, where I guess you have more time and the ability to have a more personal touch per customer. How have you approached this same experience that you're giving at scale? Because I can imagine that must have taken a lot of planning and a pretty different approach. Like how have you approached it?
I think, yeah, I mean, we're talking about this today. I'm in this business group called Vistage as well. So that was about like what skills the CEO needs and your C-suite team needs. And there was lots of chat about, oh, when you go from this many people, we've heard this a lot, when you go from like 10 to 20, that's it, your culture is out the window and you can no longer do those things because you get busier. And there's all these milestones that are kind of recognized as the challenging points, 30 to 40, for example. So I think because we've always thought, okay, it might get harder, we've done a lot of work to try and make sure that the team are hired via values and they connect with us in that way, and they get the importance of that kind of things that are important to us, like the great customer communication and being open and being yourself. And actually, hopefully, I really hope that the team feel this, but that they are empowered as kind of like their whole selves at work. So they're excited to be there, and therefore they're like the way they represent us and that their place in the business is pretty positive. So does that answer your question? I think it's like making, I guess the sort of second part to truly answer your question is that it's not just us that does that now. So you have to, at a certain point, going from a startup to a scale up, you have to trust the team to do it. It's one of those, like, delegation and, letting go of the reins a bit. And it's inevitable and it's a really important step. And when you do that and you do have a team that more or less get what you're about, then it has gone well. Maybe not everyone does things exactly like we would do it, and you have to make peace with that. But if you trust your team and that ultimately you've got a strong enough strategy and people know what they're up to, then it worked.
Absolutely. No, I think it's a brilliant answer. And something else I was keen to ask, and obviously correct me if any of this is wrong, but when I was doing the research, and I know you mentioned when you started in London and then moved to Scotland, if that's correct.
Yeah.
I was really interested by this because I guess most people's automatic conclusion would be that the journey, I suppose, for many is the opposite. You maybe start in somewhere like Edinburgh, Glasgow, and as you grow and as you expand the team, you might perhaps move to somewhere in London. I was really interested, actually. What was your kind of thinking behind it and everything else? Just really.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, there's a couple of reasons why we moved up, but I think so. For us that was a really good sort of family timing thing, and it was a business timing thing. I think businesses need to look at the location as much as you need to look at all the things that make up the business, and that's of course your people there, but also the location that you're in, and is that a suitable place for building the kind of business that you're trying to build. So for us, we had family reasons. We lived in London for 8 years at that stage, and Darina's from Edinburgh, and we were kind of looking for, it might be time to move out of London now, and Edinburgh and Scotland was really the only place that we were keen on coming up with. So we've got family here. But for Ooni then, for an outdoor cooking product company, London doesn't really make sense in that way. I don't have very much outdoor space to work on your products, let alone test your products or do any of it. So, and central London really isn't kind of for density wise isn't our best market either. So looking for a place that makes sense to build this. So we were looking to start setting roots for Ooni. We knew that we're going to have to hire a lot more people in the coming years, and we didn't want to make sure that we have this London base and then move up, because it doesn't make sense to be there. But for a lot of businesses, of course, it makes sense to be where their customers are. Our customers are all over the world. They're in US, in across Europe, everywhere. So we didn't need to be next to our customers, and we weren't going to be manufacturing in the UK either, so we didn't need to be next to our manufacturers. So we decided that, well, actually, Scotland offers quite a nice place to settle down.
It was an incredibly long answer for you, Kristian. I would thought you said that I wanted more space. I'm from Finland.
Yeah.
So Kristian like grew up beside a lake and a forest, so he's used to so much space. And I think that's what you mainly craved, right? Like,
yeah.
and then, but not wanting to be in Finland, because like, it's where his parents live is very, very remote. And Scotland was, it wasn't actually on my agenda. It was more you pushing it. And then I was like, I saw a house that you could get, like, all right, okay, if that's what you can get versus our tiny terrace in London. And we bought actually the first house we saw, which is like crazy. Wow. But yeah, it's just amazing, and a lot of it was about having a garden and somewhere to shoot, and like as in film. So yeah, no, it was a personal reason definitely, but we haven't ever felt, even because we had Sukla then as well, but our events were international. We were doing things in New York and Finland and all over the place, so we didn't need to be in London really for any of the work reasons. Though I do love London still. Miss you.
Oh, great. No, it's some awesome points actually, and it leads me really nicely onto team and hiring. So I know you've spoken a good bit already about it, Darina, and I guess I was really keen to come back to the high growth and needing to hire a big team. And I guess one of the questions was, how have you approached it, given the speed and how quickly you've grown? So I can only imagine that must be quite potentially stressful and a lot of logistics, and obviously finding the right people in terms of culture. How have you gone about it?
Yeah, I think we haven't made many mistakes in hiring, and one of the reasons is having a set of values that we decided with the team that we hire by and live by. And I think I'd encourage everyone to do that and not make it some BS thing that's on your wall, but actually just choose them and make sure that they do align. So we obviously want cultural diversity and all sorts of diversity. That's not the point, but the point is that it's very hard to, well, when we've made a mistake, for example, we've gone, this person has got exactly what we need. They've worked in manufacturing and then they've sold into the US, and like we haven't done that before, but they're not passionate, and passion is one of our values. It's like, it's okay because their experience is amazing and we've got enough passion in spades that we can the passion will rub off. And it just didn't, and it didn't work out with that very expensive hire. It was all fine, but it was a distraction, so we realized that you can teach experience, you can have experiences, and you can teach, you can learn knowledge, but you definitely can't sort of learn the values. They should be there. So that's been a really important part of it. And another way we've grown is by having good friends and family that we think are good people that we've hung around with. So it's worth noting that wasn't the strategy, but one of our first hires, or very early hires, was Connor, who's my brother, and it was our very first sales hire. Kristian and I come up from a trade show in Birmingham, the glamorous Birmingham, when you're allowed to go places, and we'd won Retailer's Choice for like best new product and got loads of press and people saying like, pizza ovens are the extension of the home, and Ooni's leading the way. It was really, really positive. And up to that point, so we've been selling online directly, but we also had a few retailers that had come to us, and we were quite passive. We weren't strategically going out after people. And we were like, we should get a salesperson. And Kristian and I both said separately, salespeople, a bit pushy, and like Ooni's such an authentic story, and it sells itself, and I don't know about commission. And to be honest, we were pretty cynical about it. Which is unfair and not true in the grand scheme of things. But we both said, someone like Connor. So Connor is a really good not salesperson, he is now, but he was a really kind of good people person. But he came from a corporate background. He was working in Goldman Sachs at the time. He also wanted to move up from London, but just like super sharp and also lovely. And we were like, yeah, someone like him would be great. And we just laughed it off because we have one of the key things about Ooni is we've paid ourselves incredibly small amounts, came from an education background, so I've never been, massively paying out, it's a bit better now, but we, at that point, we knew we couldn't compete with a Goldman Sachs salary at all. And so we just dismissed it. But then after like 3 weeks, I saw Connor and I just mentioned, oh yeah, we were joking about getting you into sales. And he was like, stop everything. I would love to come and join Ooni. I'm so excited. I don't care about money. We'll make money eventually. And just chucked the towel in his corporate career and came on a very non-corporate journey with us. And that was amazing. So we had like another brilliant person in the exec team. And then a similar thing happened actually with our CFO, who's Connor's best friend from nursery, who worked for KPMG, and basically said a year after that, he would help us by looking at our books. He could see we're getting a bit successful and he had lots of experience in the auditing world. And then he basically was like, I'm coming, I want to be your CFO. We're like, do we need that? And of course we did. So we've managed to attract like a really great team, but we also got people who were in our lives anyway. It was random. So it's more than just a traditional like husband and wife family business. We've brought in some sort of friends and family. And of course now the team attract other people they know that they love. So there's kind of this kind of culture going that way. If like we have an employee net promoter score, and would you recommend Ooni as a place to work, is obviously that question. And luckily lots of them do. So now it's harder. So now we've gone to this position of like, we're definitely an established scale up, and we've grown very quickly, especially in the last year, which we can talk a bit more about, but incredible growth, like about 400% growth in the last year. So we think we've accelerated about 3 or 4 years faster than our ambitious plan already. And we're looking at like these key gaps in terms of truly becoming a global brand, and what do we need in terms of experience, and like where can we go. And we've always been good cheeky networkers, where we like, especially me, I love people, and I'll always be kind of front-footed about connecting with people. And so now we're like, who are the best people in the world that we can work with? And that's where we're at the moment. Our team are already fantastic. We've scaled so quickly, so there are some key
it's
gaps.
Definitely it's a kind of a catch-22 there. It's getting easier to attract very, very good talent, but it's also getting harder to find it at the same time, because the kinds of things, especially for those kind of very specific types of roles that you're looking for in sort of e-commerce and product design, and really across on the level that we're looking for these people, it's becoming more difficult. So we've got some hires that we don't really expect to fill for 12 months, but that is life.
Absolutely. And what really strikes me is, well, I say, Juni, you came to the right place if you're seeing cheeky networking for sure. We're startup grind, so glad you said that. I like that a lot. What strikes me, I suppose, now is, like you mentioned, the acceleration, 400% growth, which I can't even imagine. It's remarkable. One of the questions I had was, like you said, everyone loves pizza, and I imagine, I might be wrong, of course, that this category, pizza oven specifically, there's a lot of competition. Obviously, correct me if there's not, but one of my questions I had was, what for you, or how have you approached competition? Do you have any kind of moats that you feel going to make you unique, and what's your thinking on it?
So we were kind of fortunate in that we were creating a category. So we were the first ones to create this, like if we look at it quite tightly, this sort of portable pizza oven, portable wood-fired pizza oven. So we created this category, and there's always an advantage, strong advantage for the company that creates the category, because they get to kind of start setting the rules around that. We've been surprised how there hasn't been more competition over the years, to be honest. And I think part of it has been that we've sort of strategically tried to go under the radar where necessary, and then make a lot of noise where we think it makes a difference. So there's been that. We have been fairly small and modest in size for years, and getting ready to scale. But I think also it's not. I think a lot of there's a barrier of entry also into our market. So there's on the product side, there's tooling costs, and you can't launch the same product as I launched in 2012 on Kickstarter anymore. It wouldn't fly anymore. Where it's 2021 now, and that's not enough anymore. So because we've taken that market forward by so much. So there's barriers of entry in that way. We put a lot of effort. We put a lot of money into developing our products to be the best in the market. And then I think what helped us in the early stages along the way is that pizza, while it's the most loved of all food types, it's not something that most people most say manufacturers would be looking at coming into, hey, I want to create an outdoor cooking product. It's not the easiest product to explain to people that how to make it, and there's all this layer of education and getting people to make pizza at home. So I think that's a lot of these parts have helped us. We've taken our kind of view on expanding the market, is that we want to be in those places in the retail channels that we feel like are the most important ones in the market. So we're in John Lewis and a few other retail outlets in the UK. We're not in, say, B&Q, where we've said no to some incredibly large US chains, where we don't feel like these are the places we need to play in. But then we're kind of trying to carve out the part of the market that we think is the most valuable. And really, again, going back to being the first in the market really does help. Being the best product in the market really helps. And now we've kind of, in the last year, what's happened is that if you search for pizza oven on Google, just a generic term, you'll find us at the very top of Google search results, and that's what really helps.
Mm-hmm. I think that to add about competition is not really worry about it, which sounds like arrogant, but at first we didn't have any, and we were competing against, I guess, the traditional like £2,000 worth of very bulky traditional products, and they're beautiful and they're installations and they're very different from Ooni. So we didn't feel like that was a direct competition. They're so niche, and our point was about trying to bring pizza to the backyards of everybody, right? So it was a different goal, and great pizza at home was our target. So we've always been kind of very focused there, and specifically trying to own the consumer at home experience rather than competing with restaurant ovens and all of that. So not looking too much and focusing on ourselves. So when we have had copycats and rip-offs, like in the early days, they're coming now, and they're relatively thick and fast comparatively, as we've established this as an important or worthwhile industry. But in the early days, you could see Kristian getting distracted by people like essentially stealing our baby and ripping up our ideas, like just straight up. And it was really distracting. And we learned quite early that every entrepreneur's only got so much time and effort, and focusing it on the positive and ploughing everything into goods and making a good company and a really beautiful product and always innovating. And that was a really good lesson to learn early on, is that you can be all consumed by like fight over here, and it is personal, but I'm not saying that we won't, if people now are at a bigger stage, of course we'll tell them to stop doing that if they're copying us or infringing on any design rights or whatever. It's different. But in terms of those early day distractions, we learned just to focus on the positive, and I think that's held us in good stead. And I would encourage people to, the competition is a bad thing. Like we said early on, we have to both sell Ooni to people and establish that pizza ovens are a thing. They weren't before. And so having other people that are doing stuff, especially when they're credible, you're like, fair play, on you go. That's helpful for everyone, essentially. So not to be worried or threatened, but just focus on doing the best.
Absolutely, it's a brilliant point to end on. It reminds me I'm probably going to get the quote wrong, but it's something like copying is the biggest form of flattery or something similar. So I guess, you know, people are competing. Yes.
Imitation, yeah. Imitation's a big,
absolutely.
Great flattery. Yeah.
So listen, guys, we've got so many amazing questions. So I'm going to actually steal one. I'm going to steal David Dennis's question. I hope you can forgive me, David. But it's a really good quick fire one to finish with this part. And then if it's okay for you guys, we'll bring on a few people for Q&A.
Yeah.
So sorry, David, I know it's terrible, but I had a similar one, I promise. And this is, what is your go-to pizza for making in your Ooni ovens on a Friday night? What's your go-to?
You start, Kristian.
So I had pizza for lunch today. I had a very simple, just the dough base with just crushed tomatoes and a little bit of chili oil on top of it. It was beautiful. But I have so many. I don't have a go-to, but if I go to a restaurant and I want to kind of get a flavor for what the quality is, you got to go with some of the basics. You got to go with the margarita or marinara. But my go-to there would be probably Napoletana, which is essentially with the anchovies and capers and often olives. So no cheese on this one. Salty, very nice. But you get all those flavors kind of come through, and you can still taste the dough and the kind of the quality of it comes through nicely.
I've managed to get through a whole interview without saying that I'm a vegan, so now's the time. True to form. So yeah, I am plant-based, and so I don't really go for cheese. There's some that are okay now that are vegan cheese that are okay, but yeah, I really like marinara. I really like chili, everything hot. So masses of chili on my pizzas every time.
Fantastic. Making me very hungry. I wish I hadn't asked that, you know. I need to get myself an Ooni oven tea in due course. So, well, listen, guys, really appreciate you obviously answering my segment. I generally had 10, 12 more questions I would have loved to have asked you. But of course, such is time and the restraints we have. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring on a few of the audience just now, if that's okay, to ask some of your questions.
Yeah.
Sukhvir, I'll bring you on first if you're ready. I'm just going to add you to stage. Give you a second. I know it normally takes like a couple of seconds to get your mic, etc. on. So I know you had a couple of really good questions.
Right.
One of them, man. I'll let you fire away. Stage is yours.
Yes, sorry, I think I've met Kristian before at one of these startup grind events, and in fact, it was a Scottish Edge event. So my question is about manufacturing, because we've kind of been through a similar kind of journey to you. Obviously, we're years behind where you are, with regards to doing a Kickstarter campaign. That was 30 days of pain, when you're doing that. We've kind of taken you can see, a machine behind me. So we're kind of doing our manufacturing ourselves for the Kickstarter batch, really to save costs.
Yeah.
How did you manufacture your, first Kickstarter batch? And then how did you look for, manufacturers thereafter? Because obviously you talked about the surge in sales that you had, and I placed an order for my Ooni, and I had to wait about 3 months to get it. And I know you were obviously shipping from abroad as well, so your manufacturing is outsourced. So it was just a question about how you started with your first batch, and then at what point and how did you scale up?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I'll try and keep it to, I could talk a whole hour or two about manufacturing, definitely. But it's essentially, it was, like Darina mentioned there, we didn't have a manufacturer set before the Kickstarter campaign. Kickstarter campaign launch, which still gives me nightmares, that thought of going into Kickstarter without a manufacturer. But hey, it's a different time. And I found a manufacturer. I called up. So I was looking for fairly straightforward sheet metal fabrication. Originally, the thought was that I'd use the same guys down the street in Southeast London who'd made the prototypes to make the ovens, but they would only be able to make maybe up to 50 or so. Now the first production run ended up being 500 units, so I had to find something a little bit bigger. I looked around Southeast England. At the same time, cast the net out to Finland, and found a place over there that was willing to take the job on. It was very, for sales wise, it was very low margin for us, because manufacturing in the West for this type of thing is not necessarily very cost effective. But it was good. It was really helped us get started, get it out to the market. It was really, I've been very keen on getting things out to the market and getting that feedback and starting learning that way. And then a couple of years of manufacturing over in Finland. In 2015 moved manufacturing to China, where we're still with the first manufacturer. We've got another probably a dozen different manufacturers now, 5 core manufacturers for ovens, but we're still with the first manufacturer we found there, and we have a brilliant relationship with them.
Excellent.
So,
cool.
Cool.
Well, thanks very much. I appreciate that. I'd love to connect with you at some point, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. My email is kristian@ooni.com if anyone wants to drop me a line.
Sorry, another question was about my Ooni code. I use it indoors because it's too cold to take it outdoors. I mean, it's been safe enough so far.
Yeah.
No, that is not recommended.
Is there a plan to make an indoor version of it? Because I mean, certainly indoors, we do love using it.
Yeah.
And the thing about the Ooni, which I think you guys should maybe emphasize a bit more in your marketing, is that it actually brings the family together. I get my son to make the pizza sauce, my daughter cuts the vegetables, my wife, we've got sourdough that's kind of rolled out. So everyone's got a role. And I think, if you made an indoor version, just kind of showing a whole family coming together and making pizza, it's the only dish we make where everyone comes together and does something like that. We actually look forward to it. It's the whole experience.
Yeah, no, definitely. We think there's a lot of people who would love an indoor oven.
I have one, but don't obviously say that.
We're saying nothing, but
excellent.
I'm
Thanks
so
very
glad
much.
that your family enjoys it. That's so lovely to hear, and
That's
it's
so cool.
Yeah, it's what we hear a lot. So yeah, maybe weave more into our marketing. Thank you for that.
Well, we tried doing naans and chicken tikka in it as well, which works very well as well.
Amazing.
So there's lots
I would suggest maybe moving from Scotland if you're being rained on. No, I'm only joking. I love Scotland. We're staying here. No, we'll watch this space as our update on that.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm watching. Thank you.
Great questions, thank you. And I'm going to bring Darren on actually as well, because I know you had a really good question as well. Just going to bring you on. I know you'd asked it in the main chat, which caught my attention as well. So give you a second and bring you on. And I should say as well, guys, you may have seen my comment. If you are keen to hang on for a bit longer, we're here until 8:30. Over to you, Darren, if you're ready.
Hey there, folks. Thanks for the great insights. Really enjoyed that. My question's around your thoughts on B Corp. We've just launched a couple of weeks ago a platform, and we've decided to become a B Corp pending organisation. And just when you spoke about your team and about the importance of them, I just wondered if you had thoughts on it, because it seemed quite aligned with some of your goals at Ooni. So.
Yeah, we've done what's it called? We've kind of done the scoring before, and we're just like a bit shy when we first did the test, which is obviously great, because I guess anything over 0 means you're doing better than most companies, but we're just a couple of points shy. And actually now we've changed so significantly in the last couple of years. We've brought in a sustainability coordinator. We give 1% for the planet as part of our revenue every year. So it's a massive priority for us. So we're now redoing the B Corp application, basically. And we think we've probably changed enough things in our, like measuring things, for example, our carbon and our power usage is a part of our plan anyway. So yeah, totally love B Corp. Actually know the CEO, and he was like, what have you not got this for? I'm like, okay, we'll do it. So thank you. And yeah, good for you doing it. We fully support what they're up to. It's a brilliant organisation.
Yeah, for sure. It's a great network as well. There's just Be Locals kicked off in Scotland about a month ago. So yeah, there's I think a lot of people, and funnily enough, they've seen a spike in demand during COVID for some reason. Yeah. I don't know if that makes people more think about the ethics. Yeah, maybe. Yeah. But no, it just seemed to be a good fit for you guys. I didn't realise that you were so active already. So
trying our best, but yeah, definitely something that's back on our radar, because we did it and we're like, there was one part, our customers, the whole section on customers we couldn't do because it was about benefiting, I can't remember, but it was about benefiting communities that were deprived or something specific, and we couldn't can't squeeze that part in, and it was the whole quarter of the test. And so, but we're doing so much over here, and hopefully we'll be in a really good position now to kind of get that status.
Yeah, fantastic. Good luck. The only other thing is this conversation has just made me absolutely starving.
Yeah, we haven't even shown any visuals. It is dinner time, isn't it?
Yes.
God, it's not just me, Dan. Well, appreciate the question, Dan. Thanks so much.
Thanks.
So one more. And a really interesting question actually from Chong Su. So I'm going to invite you on, Chong Su, if you're ready. Give you a second as well. Slightly different one than some of the others. So if that's not working, it's set.
Hi, yeah. I didn't expect me being brought in. Good to see you, Darina. Yeah, thank you so much for your talk. Very inspiring. Yeah, and loved your journey. I've come across your Ooni oven for the last probably 2 years, but never really had the chance to buy yet. I mean, your product development journey. I mean, what's the vision? Like the current trend of bringing AI and making it smart. Does it come in your brain?
Yeah. So no, definitely. So we've started with a very simple approach of find a way of efficiently burning wood inside a small box. And it's definitely a lot happening with technology and how we could integrate it. I think there's two parts of it. We are looking into kind of what does future hold for outdoor cooking and pizza making. There's also at the same time like looking at how technology is integrated with a lot of these products and how people actually want to use them. Is that there doesn't seem to be a huge need for customers, or when you're cooking outdoors, especially, there's people want to interact it in a different way. They want to stop using their phones and they want to kind of just have the fire there and focus on the food and that experience of being with their families and cooking. So the kind of integrating a lot of technology hasn't so far been a very high up on the priorities list, but it's definitely something that we're always looking at how to make the experience better for our customers. So maybe there are areas where we can integrate.
That's it.
Yeah, hopefully. Seeing the next generation. I mean, personally, our team also developing this smart back therapy machine, Backhug, and at some point we'd love to connect with Darina and Kristian and get some wisdom experience at some point. Yeah, no, absolutely. Amazing. Would love to. Yeah, my email I mentioned earlier, Kristian@ooni.com. It's easy to find. I'm easy to find on the internet. Okay, thank you for your time. Thank you.
Fantastic. And so with that, that'll be the final question. And once again, really appreciate you both joining us. I know, well, with so much growth, with so many projects, I can only imagine how much you guys have put on. So honestly, a real heartfelt thank you from me and from everyone as well. And just on time, obviously conscious of not running over. If it's okay for you guys, I'm going to bring on Alan actually to announce the next event. But before I do, I just want to say a huge thank you. I've learned a huge amount. You're both such great interviewees. I actually didn't need to look at any notes or anything, just because it just felt so natural, and you can tell you guys have done this many times.
Yeah. With chatterboxes, that's more the point. But thank you so much for inviting us. It's like a very lovely format, and it was and really great questions from you and from the floor. So if anyone wants to follow up with us, great. Like Kristian said, we're super accessible, and I've really enjoyed being part of this community. So thank you.
No problem at all.
Thank you very much from me as well. We love helping, and kind of if there's anything we can do, we're here for it.
That's it. Thank you guys. Really do appreciate it.